the moment where Lisa interviews Ari. Thank you so much. There you go.
I think we'll use one. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
Wow. Hello.
We got here.
We did.
What time
We
is
did.
it?
5 past. We're not too bad.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor. We'll try and move it on.
There you are. Oh, bless you. Shall I tell you?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, my name's Lisa. I work for the library service, and I work for a project called Pen to Print. Pen to Print works with local people to get your book published. We tell your story. We have a competition running at the moment for short stories and poetry. The closing date is next week. Okay, if you want to have a look, go onto the council website, type Pen to Print, and you'll be able to find all the information there. I will tell you a little secret. We are launching our own website in April. I'm sure Arinola will share it with you.
You told me not to tell anyone, but you told me.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Oh, let's have a look.
Okay, I worked at Dagenham Library when it first opened in 2010. And we had these two ladies that came along and spoke to my managers that worked there at the time and said, could we use a little room? We'd like to hold a women's group. That group has grown. It was Women of Substance. They came through the doors and their idea was to empower women. And I'm really pleased that we're here nearly 9 years later with Arinola and a book. Yeah, so it's really brilliant. So it's a pleasure to host your book launch this evening. My first question to you is, what brought you to Barking and Dagenham?
I was, as the book would tell you, in a very tense situation. I had to leave my home because my ex was kicking me. I mean, that was the last thing that happened. And I was seeking, what do you call it? Refuge. I was seeking refuge. So I used to live in Enfield, and I had to get away from the situation that I was living in. And Barking and Dagenham seemed to be the nice or the attractive option because my mother lived in Barking and Dagenham, and that was my connection. But I'm thankful to Barking and Dagenham for providing a safe haven for me. So please give it up for Barking and Dagenham. Yes. So without talking too much, that's how it happened. That's how I got to Barking and Dagenham. Yes.
That's really good. We're glad you come here. Well, I won't say that at the start of the week, but I'll say it today. You have published a book.
Yes,
why did you publish a book?
Very strangely, my friend has just walked out. The lady she was talking about, Molly. I started blogging about my situation, the domestic violence story. And Molly said to me, why don't you just package it and make it a book? I thought, ooh, that means that it's going to go everywhere as well. People are going to know my story. And she said, why not? So I thought, why not? But honest with you, I have to say that I believe in God, and everybody in this world has a purpose. And even if you have moved away from what you originally created to be, we have a loving God who would tease you back, put you back on track, and make a message out of mess. So I decided that I would lay down my life and lay down this story, because I had a conversation with God. And I said, you know what, I don't want to put my story out there. He said, why not? I said, well, I don't want people to know my business. Well, he's saying to me, you've given your life to me, so your business is my business. So I had to surrender my life and thought, I'll surrender my life, surrender my story. And once I've written it, it becomes a project. It doesn't become a part of me. And what has happened becomes an event that has taken place. And it doesn't define my future. So that's why I decided to publish a book. And the other thing is, when I was in a situation that was very tense and active, I wouldn't talk about it. There's some friends here who knew me, how I used to be very full of life, and they would say to me, you've changed. I would avoid phone calls. I would avoid going out with friends. I was always making up excuses. I was dressing really drab. You're going to see some slides later. I have a picture that shows what I used to look like. I was dressing in men's clothes, no makeup. My mother said to me once, don't come to my house if you're not going to put earrings on. So you see, I've got earrings, just in case my mom is watching. Yes, so I realized that if people are not going to talk about it, but if it's written and packaged, either it's in digital format or it's in a book, they can read my story or read and get the healing that they need and get the the confidence and the boldness to talk to someone about it. So that's why I had to write the book.
I'm sure we were waiting, but could you read some?
Yes. It's just I'm not sure. It was a very difficult
time, and before I do that, somebody called me this morning and I was in tears. She said, Ari, I remember what you were like. I came to see you once and your husband wouldn't let me in. And they argued and reasoned with him, but he said no. And she was crying on the phone this morning and saying to me, I'm so thankful to God that you have taken the step to share your story. I'm so thankful that your story is going to bless people. I mean, I didn't expect this turnout. I didn't expect this, and I'm thankful to everyone that has come. It's been a long, hard road. You can imagine, I got a letter today from the DWP telling me that the child support that I've been trying to get for the last 17 years is not going to come. And I said, well, I mean, there's no point. I mean, just write it off, you know. And my prayer was that I will always find a way to provide for my children. So there were moments of what I call drama, but there were moments of fun. My daughter doesn't want to be introduced today, so I'm not going to call her to say anything. She's warned me not to say anything. And what I realize is when people are going through this separation, they don't always think about their kids. It's always about them. So in this book, I talk about how I was so self-absorbed. It was about me, my life, what's going to happen to me. And I didn't stop for a moment to think about the kids. So I'm going to read a little bit about that. There's a chapter there called Who Speaks for the Children? I'm going to need my glasses. This story will not be balanced or accurate without mentioning its impact on the children, the innocent ones in all of this. One day my mom called my attention to the rehearsal and account of my 2.5-year-old daughter who sat under the table, reliving and recounting events between her parents. She kept repeating over and over, Daddy hit mommy, Daddy kicked mommy. I was so shocked to hear this. It was a wake-up call for me, as you can imagine. Now, this story makes me look good, but it's not really that good. I had some bad, it always takes two to tango in a relationship and stuff. I'm embarrassed to admit that our children learned early on to call the authorities when they sensed an escalating argument in the home. You hear so many stories about people reacting in self-defense when they were in a threatening situation. Well, I kind of resorted to unfamiliar, strange means to defend myself. You will have to hear this bit on a one-on-one basis, I'm afraid. I remember one occasion when they visited because they heard a child call the police. I learned a few skills. The ability to utilize other tools in the house as a gearbox. I'm not going to say anymore. Also, my mom called one day to witness one of the kids hiding behind the sofa after he had taken a sweet without my approval. I had always wanted the kids to have brilliant, white, non-problematic teeth, unlike my own experience, but one of them was thinking differently. It took an Igbo friend's comments to shock me into considering that the kids might be suffering the temporary loss of their parent and needed the security and reassurance mommy could provide. Because I've become so absorbed with the pressures of having to change mindset quickly, to start to think for myself again, make my own decisions, deal with harassment, and handle the threats, and handle the task of being a mom, to 3 young children, it was a very tough time. I remember, you need to hear this bit though. I remember the pain, I had forgotten the pain my children might have been feeling. A subtle reminder of my role as a parent came from a friend who was timely, as it diverted the focus away from my own thoughts to the areas of the kids. It wasn't easy to decide what story to tell the kids, as things were so distorted back then. Where is Daddy? When will we see him again, if ever? Well, I'd resolved within me that children were not going to be used as a pawn and that they had a right to access their father. I think I'd heard enough stories of children being shut out of negotiations involving connections with an estranged parent. I'd heard of too many needless battles over where the children live or who they lived with. So embarrassing this, but I'll share it. A lovely hot summer day, the children were due to be picked up for the weekend away, and the matter of maintenance and support for the kids was still up in the air. So when their dad arrived, he noticed that the children's clothes were old, and my son's trousers and pants were just below the knee, so they were neither trousers nor shorts. And I was asked the question, where are the children's clothes? I can't remember my exact words, but I think they were to this effect. Well, the children can wear whatever clothes you bought them. So that was my own way of reminding him that he had some responsibility, to help with the kids. The result then, when they were returned to us, they always had a different set of clothes on. It was interesting at that time that the male judge presiding over the matter dismissed all my concerns about not having an address for where the children were being taken to. He said, well, even if the children were put under the bridge, what's the problem? It doesn't matter, as long as he returns them on time. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I'll go too far. I want to say to the glory of God that I have 3 children. The first one, according to the Nigerian tradition, she has done everything she needs to do except get married now. So she's got the first degree, she's got the postgraduate. So the next thing is marriage. Yes. And then career. That's how we do it, isn't it, in Africa? He's a counselor. And then the second one, a boy, you're going to see pictures later. He's in University of Essex doing actuarial science. And the youngest, and the youngest one is in Cambridge University. And I thank God for that because I never thought that was possible. But with God, all things are possible. Thank you.
Well done, well done. We actually had a little joke about that in the office today, didn't we, about the shorts being too, and in hindsight, now it's funny, but at the time, it's very emotional, and to be able to get your point across by having to do that physically, it's very hard. Just, can I say congratulations, because you were 14th in the Amazon chart last week, and that was really hot news, that was really good, and you've done that by yourself. And with a little help of social media.
Friends.
A little help of social media. Can I just ask, what does women's empowerment mean to you?
Ooh, that word is bounced about a bit. Do you want to say something, Mary? Women empowerment?
About feminism.
Yes.
I feel like this is not the time for this.
Okay, well, she believes in feminism.
I'm far too passionate, so I've got too much time. Sorry.
Okay, women's empowerment. Like I said earlier on, I believe in God, and men and women were made equal. And men and women have different roles to play. I don't subscribe to this get rid of men, burn your bra business. It makes me get upset. Because if we don't have men, we can't have the kids or the sex. Let's be honest, we can't have jiggy and things like that. Yes. Jiggy. We can't have jiggy. We call it jiggy or whatever it is. We're not going to digress. I don't want to get embarrassed, too embarrassed. Right, so women empowerment means that every woman should. Maslow's hierarchy of needs has this thing called actualization. Everyone should fulfill their purpose. I became a doctor. I was influenced by my father being a doctor, my mom being a nurse, and I always said I wanted to help. Then from medicine, I got bored. Can you imagine? I got bored. I jumped on the plane, came to the UK, I wanted something else to do, and I didn't know what to do. So I picked up computers and I did a course in medical informatics. And from then after that I got married, and then I started doing some finance, politics, management. Can you imagine a daughter creating a board game? And that came to me in a dream because I have a God who has a sense of humor, And then now he wanted me to write a book and he's always giving me all these ideas. I believe that my life is about solving problems. So every woman, every man has something in them. They're either problem solvers, ideas generators, they're either fixers, whatever. Everybody has a role. So women empowerment to me means be the best that you can be with what you've been given with, because everybody has something in their hand. Am I reaching somebody? Woo! At this point, I wanted to sing a song.
Will it break the microphone?
No. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can, please do this. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can, just try. Take a little time on a busy day to give encouragement to someone who's lost their way. Just try. Or would I be talking to a stone if I asked you to share a problem that's not your own? We can change things If we start giving, why don't you reach out and touch somebody's hand? Make this world a better place. If you can, reach out and touch. I have to tell myself to end it now. Somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can. As a protocol, please can we all stand up to acknowledge my friend, it's too late, sorry, Madam Mayor, back in the Dagenham, Sancha Alasa. She's so humble. Thank you everybody, thank you so much. Right. How much time have I got?
Oh, we've got time, don't worry.
Really?
We've got lots of time. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ask you one quick one. What do you hope this book brings to other people?
I hope this book means hope, healing, an opportunity to dialogue with our Maker and ask Him, why did you put me on this earth? What is the calling on my life? I hope it brings fun and laughter, solutions, ideas for how to break out of an intense, violent situation. Amen.
Thank you. I've got a little bit of fun, just a little end bit of fun. We call these hot questions. We do these with a lot of our authors. So, cake or chocolate?
Chocolate. I don't know why I said that. It's cake. It's usually cake. Yeah.
Cake,
Chocolate cake?
no,
Oh, I want
That type.
chocolate cake.
No chocolate cake, no.
Ice cake. Hair or nails?
Hair, I think.
Hair?
I don't do my nails.
Hair it is.
Oh shit, you know the answers.
Shoes or handbags?
shoes.
This is about you. Don't
think
ask,
it's shoes, I
don't
know.
ask Demi,
I
it's
know.
about you.
I know.
Shoes.
Yeah.
Your favourite colour?
Purple and gold. Purple.
Your favourite film?
Oh. What will this day be like?
Music.
I wonder
Sound music.
what will my future be. I wonder. She never have asked me that question. It could be so exciting to be out in the world to be free. My heart should be wildly rejoicing. Oh, what's the matter with me? I've always longed for adventure, to do the things I never did. And here I'm facing adventure. I better just sit down. Lisa will not be my friend.
I've never had an author do that before. It's original.
Innovation.
That's good. We'll invite you back for book 2. I think we'll just have a karaoke session for book 2. Yeah. Okay. Okay, a slogan if you were Prime Minister?
No more homelessness in this country.
Good one. Yeah, we all agree with that, I think, yeah. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Summer. And my last one, Barking Library, BLC or Dagenham Library?
You're gonna put me in trouble. Oh no.
We have got the boss of Dagenham Library here, we have got the boss of Barking Library here.
I can't do
I'm not
that.
going to put you on the spot.
No, I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
Should we say all the libraries in Dagenham?
Yes! All the libraries. Give it up for the libraries. All of them. Woo! Where would I be without the libraries, eh?
Where would I be without the libraries? The board game, the book, everything. Where would I be without the libraries? Vince, Heather, Angelica, they've watched us grow. And Lisa is now my best friend. There was somebody else from the library here.
Lena's got Lena.
Lena, Lena.
And come on.
Come
And
on.
come on!
Come on.
Where would we be without the libraries?
Bless you. Would you like to, I know we're running a little bit behind, but do you want to read another excerpt from your book?
Oh wow, I think I had another page. Is that mine? Okay. Oh, sorry everybody. Okay. Small steps. Hey God, I hope I don't cry on this one too.
Right, small steps. What most people might take for granted, choosing to upgrade a phone at the end of a contract, turned out to be an uphill task for me, punctuated with so many emotions I used to get told what makeup of phone to sign up for. Now I had the choice, the freedom to pick and choose what model of upgraded phone I wanted. Wow, that felt so good. And I think a little bit of my spontaneous nature was creeping back at this point. Right, next I remember taking a trip to Calais in France. It was actually a matter of ringing a bus travel agency and making a booking. Can you believe that? Is that not how we travel? I thought it was like a big thing. For me, it was like, so I can do this. I could never make decisions for myself in those days. It was that easy, apart from the other small matters like paying for the ticket and getting up early enough on the day. Again, I was making a decision to do something for me. Thanks, everyone.
We have a fantastic round of applause for our Nona. The book is being sold for £10 tonight. You can buy it on Amazon for £12.
Yes, if you like.
So if you buy it for £10 tonight, you actually get the author's signature in it. So that's pretty special as well. So just a last round of applause for Arinola. She is around all night.
All night.
If you want the information about the libraries or pens and drinks, the staff are around and they'll be able to help you a bit later with that. But I'll pass you back over to Hannah, your compere.
Yay! Welcome back.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together again for the wonderful Lisa and Dr. Ari Araba. I would like to once again acknowledge the presence of Madam Mayor Barkin and Dagenham. Thank you so much for coming. We do appreciate you. And so we're moving on very swiftly. We've got two amazing speakers. I would like to introduce Councillor Maureen Warby, who is the Cabinet Member for Social Care Integration. And also, soon after that, I would like to also welcome Hazel North Stevens, Domestic Abuse Commissioning Manager for LBBD. Thank you. Yes, please take a seat over here. And over to you first.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I've known Arinola, I hate to think how many years. She first came to my attention when I was managing the Starting Point project, where we first gave her a place. She was never quiet. She was never quiet. The office, whenever she was in, was a riot from day one. How we ever got any work done, I'm not sure. And I think, I need to acknowledge, before I start on the depressing bit, about, how prevalent domestic abuse is, but I have to start by acknowledging the three women that we've heard today. Inspirational, willing to come out here and face you and tell you their story. And that's going to be my theme tonight, about no more silence. We cannot tolerate what's going on in our community. So I want to acknowledge the three of them, how brave, how brilliant, how inspiring you all are. So thank you. So as I say, as the introduction was, I'm lucky to be the Cabinet Member for Social Care and Health Integration. And when I say lucky, it's a very challenging portfolio. Sometimes I think it would be easier to be responsible for the bins. Well, do you know what? It's tangible. You can see whether they're full or whether they're empty. When you're responsible for social care, and all of the trauma and all of the things that are going on for individuals in this borough that aren't seen. People forget. People say to me, why have you got 70% of the council's budget? And the rest of us are trying to get along on 30%, as Linda will tell you. The reason I've got 70% is I am responsible for the services for the most vulnerable in our borough. Those old people that live next door to you, that you probably never acknowledge. and that it would make their day if you just said hello when you saw them outside. But I'm here today to talk about probably the part of my portfolio that upsets me the most, the part of my portfolio that gets me really passionate, and that's domestic abuse. And this year we have made it a priority within the council. We are not going to tolerate it anymore. We are not going to be silent. We are going to challenge you as a community to do something with us, to actually start to address the horror that those people are going through. We're very proud. You will see our leader a lot of the time, and all of us out saying we're the top of this, we're the first of that, we're the best at this. One of the things I'm not proud of is we have the highest level of domestic violence in London, in this borough. And that's the reported level. And that, so bearing in mind how much abuse goes on that's not reported, just think we've had 3 very brave women in this room today. But 1 in 4 women are victims. So just look around the room. There's a lot that are being silent, but 1 in 4. 1 in 10 crimes committed in this country, domestic violence is part of it. It's under-acknowledged, it's under-recognised. We recently did a survey of year 12.
8, 10s and 12s.
8, 10s and 12s. You see, I always forget which year it was. Of all of our school children, 27% of those children said it was fine to give or receive a slap. What sort of a community are we living in when nearly 30% of our children think it's okay to give their partner a slap? It's not right. This is the next generation. It's our duty to do something about that, to challenge it. And I have to acknowledge the effect that domestic abuse has on children. So 62% of children living with domestic abuse will have received it directly themselves. And the evidence of the trauma on children of seeing or receiving domestic abuse is evident across all sorts of research. So, as I said, I don't want to be the depressing one, but we're not going to accept it as a council anymore. We want to do something tangible about it. So we've done several things, and you'll be hearing a lot more about these going forward. I'm really proud that we're the first local authority in the country to award any of our staff that are the victims of domestic abuse will get 10 days paid leave now. And those of you, and the pressure put on you all for people to be at work, to actually make that commitment, I think says how much that we're not going to tolerate it anymore. We've adopted a new strategy around domestic violence, domestic abuse, and I'm sure Hazel will talk a bit more about that. She's a lot more knowledgeable on these things than I am. But the other thing I wanted to say that I'm very proud of we've done this year, I've launched a commission into domestic violence here in the borough. And we are not going to look at the normal, why was she hit, why did he hit her, what's all this about? Because people have written masses about that. What I want to look at is the normalisation of domestic abuse within our community. And Hazel's heard me tell this story I don't know how many times now, but what woke me up to the fact that we accept it too easily. Last year, unfortunately, on our local community page on Facebook, there was police in, I don't know, a made up road, no, any road, but it just said police in a road, nothing else. Within 5 minutes on that Facebook page, people were posting, "Oh my God, I hope that's not Karen." And it was. And Karen had been killed by her husband. Now for me, what was shocking about that was how many people knew what that woman was going through, for people to be posting on Facebook, and yet nobody had come forward and told anybody. And for me, that was the wake-up call. We can't let this carry on. We've got to say to our community, you have a responsibility when you know that's happening next door. It's not being nosy. Talking to somebody could save someone's life. And that's why I want the Commission to look at, why do we think it's okay just to ignore it, not to say anything? So you will be hearing a lot more from me in the next year around this, because I'm not going to let it carry on here. This is one thing I don't want us to be known for. I want us to be at the bottom of that list for domestic violence. So thank you very much for your time.
So thank you, Councillor Warby, who has been absolutely championing the cause for tackling domestic abuse in this borough. And thank you so much to the women that have spoken this afternoon, because it is so gratifying to hear what the strength that you've got and the resources that you have lent on in order to get to the place where you're able to come up and tell your stories and your testimony. I'm not a big fan of saying stories, it feels fabricated. I quite like the word testimony when we're talking about things like that, and I think that's very much what you gave us. Thank you. It also find it very gratifying because I'm going to tell you a bit about what we're actually doing at the moment in terms of domestic abuse. So my name is Hazel, I'm the commissioning manager. I look after our services in terms of specialist services. Some of you might be aware that we have some advocacy in this borough, and we also have the Hug It Women's Centre, which is over in Dagenham Heathway. We've got various different bits going on, but unfortunately we know that it's been fairly disjointed in terms of different bits and pockets of services coming forwards. And we also know it's been very heavily lent on crisis intervention. So picking up people when they're already in a situation where they need to flee violence, rather than being able to go, how can we prevent this in a better way, where we're actually able to link in with people before they need to flee, but before they can be in a space where they need some validation, where they might be able to hear, I believe you. It's happening to so many of us, but I know I can help you get you support. And if that's the only message I can instill in my little gap, that's the bit I'd like you to take away, those words, I believe you, because it means so much to people who have been through it to hear that and be validated. And if it plants a seed for a single person to go forwards and actually come into contact with services, even if it's just to test the boundaries to begin with, but eventually to get some support to make sure that they're safe, their children are safeguarded, but also that they can have some support getting connected back into the community. And I think I was saying earlier that I, as a non-religious person, I don't have faith, and therefore I don't have the language of faith sometimes, and I feel that that lets me down when I'm looking at commissioning services. But to hear the strength and resilience and resourcing that people have called on is really nice to hear. And I think that's something that our services will need to be picking up much more strongly with, about how people identify themselves. So in terms of how those services might look, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to make, we've only got so many resources, so we need to look at how we're going to look at people's identities and how we can find those strengths and resources for them and how we can connect them in. You mentioned earlier about volunteering, and I know there's other volunteers in the audience here because I've come and spoken with some of them before about how we can get messages around domestic abuse out there. So I think pulling on things like that, our new services are about to be reshaped under Councillor Warby. We have now been had agreement through Cabinet yesterday, so we will be completely remodelling our services. They will be looking very much more trauma informed. When I say that, I mean they will prioritise the physical safety, but also the emotional and the psychological safety of people that are experiencing domestic abuse. And we will also be looking at how we are providing services for people who are using abusive behaviours but want to stop, because we know that there are people like that out there too. So I think, if I can give you anything to take away from what I've got to say, I believe you. There are services that can support you. Any of you that were here earlier have probably had me pushing pens on you. If you haven't had one, come and grab one at the end. I've got a ridiculous amount with me. They have a little pull-out flap on them. They've got the number of our advocacy service who can provide crisis intervention, a bit of emotional support. They can signpost to all sorts of other services. But it's got a whole load of helplines. So if you've got people who are not ready to access support directly, then they can talk to someone about what they're going through and get some of that early validation. There's also some support on there for people who are deaf, for men who are experiencing domestic abuse, for LGBT people who are experiencing domestic abuse. So if you take these away, they're not very obvious. Tuck them in your bag. You never know when you're going to have to call upon that. And I'll leave it there, if that's okay.
Can I just say, guys, we have got numbers up on the screen. Please feel free to take a screenshot. We've got printed versions at the front counter here, and we've also printed the Domestic and Sexual Violence Services booklet. It's actually huge. Did you want to add to that?
Unfortunately, I wanted to bring you some today, but I have put on training for 350 people over the last couple of weeks, and I've run out. So I have got some more being printed, and I'm more than happy. I'm going to be flooding the libraries and everywhere. So
That's brilliant.
If people want them, get in contact. I'm more than happy to share.
That's brilliant.
We have got a printed copy here. Karen Nola's got her own copy, but you can find your own copy at the website address at the top. It's got lots of useful numbers in it. There's numbers for solicitors and advice services, so it may be something that comes in handy. It's unfortunately this is not pocket size and hidden, but I will say the council website has actually got a button that if you're viewing that site and you feel that you're being watched viewing it, you can click and it will take you straight to BBC News, so no one can see you're viewing it. And the pages look quite similar. So thank you. Just hand it back over to Hannah. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilby. Great pleasure, and Hazel, thank you so much.